We've been talking about the Noble Eightfold Path. And this is this path of practices that was taught by the Buddha 2,500 years ago that leads toward liberation, freedom from suffering, awakening, enlightenment, or really grand words for a set of practices that is actually quite pragmatic and practical. This is a non-linear path. The Pharaoh sort of describes it like a circle. I like describe it like a spiral. You have your own image in mind of it. And it's non-linear in the sense that each part of the path sort of enriches the other. But I also do find that there is a kind of natural unfolding to this path, the way that it makes some intuitive sense, how one thing leads to another. And so we start with the development of the heart and the mind, these inward focused things. Am I seeing things clearly? Am I seeing reality for what it is, or is my perception blocked by something? Am I approaching life with curiosity and goodwill and compassion? And then we start to look at more outward focused things. The things that I say, the things that I do, the way that I live. I talk in here a lot about how mind is like the earth, the soil. There are things that we cultivate in our minds and our hearts. That curiosity, that goodwill, compassion, and the clarity, clear seeing. And then out of that soil produces fruit, right? And so that soil that we cultivate is really important. It has a huge impact on it. Our words, our actions, ways that our relationships are. And so this week we're going to embark on this part of the path that is about this outward facing stuff. And because what we do and what we say and how we live is where we come into contact with each other, there's a moral element to this stuff. Because this is the place where harm is possible. And so these are called morality factors. They are right speech, right action, and right livelihood. And so today I'll focus on right speech, but first I want to talk about this word morality. The way that these parts of the Noble Eightfold Path are laid out, are phrased, right view, right intention, right thought, speech, right action, etc. This word right. This is something that we have said, I think, every time that we've talked about every step of the Noble Eightfold Path because it's so important. But this word right is such a tricky translation that I think is a little bit problematic because it reinforces this painful relationship that many of us already have with life, where we're trying to get something right. And we're trying to avoid being wrong. We're really trying to be good and avoid being bad. And we're also trying to figure out if other people are good or bad, or if they're right or wrong. But this word right is not exactly right. And I'm harping on this a little bit because the fact that we're talking about the morality factors in particular, I think it would be really easy to relate to these moral factors of the path as something that we do if we want to be good and right. But the word in Pali, the language that we're taught in, the word for right is samma. And the word for ethics or morality is sila. And both of those words have much more to do with harmony than rightness. To be in harmony with reality, with ourselves, and with the world around us. So I think about it instead not as something to get right, but like we're tuning an instrument, or we're singing in a choir. We are training our ear to have some increased sensitivity so that we can tell when we're in harmony or when we're in discord, when we're in tune or out of tune with reality or with ourselves or someone else. So it's like we're honing our instruments, right? Our minds and our hearts. Learning to listen a little more closely, to attune ourselves to a more harmonious way of being in the world. And again, it's not so that we can be good or right, it's because being out of harmony and discord is painful, it hurts. When I'm not being honest about what I want or don't want, it is stressful. Lying is stressful. Guilt and shame and regret over harmful things that we've said or done is painful. Relationships where there's been a lot of harm done and there's resentment built up, that's painful, right? It's stressful. And so when I feel that in my heart, I need to be able to discern what's happening. Where am I out of alignment? Where am I out of tune? And I can only see that if I am able to look directly at that thing which is difficult to look at. Reality as it really is. We need to be able to discern how we really feel, what we really want, to see clearly our own intentions, to see where those intentions go. That's where the action comes from, when the confidence of the life and heart. That is Samma, that is Sila. And so this first aspect of the path, right speech, deals with this moral element of life that has to do with the words that we say. And so right speech is about fostering speech that helps us be in more harmony. And it's got 4 different. And because this is a practice of discernment and alignment and tuning, I think it's helpful to think about these 4 parts as questions that we ask ourselves along the way. And the first, and the one that the Buddha said is the most important, is it true? Am I telling the truth? I think it's easiest to understand why this question was considered the most important if we think about the karmic consequences of not following. What happens when I consistently say yes when I mean no? Or if I consistently exaggerate to elicit more sympathy or favor? I tell stories in such a way that I maintain my innocence. the consequences of not telling the truth play out first in an inability to trust ourselves. Maybe even an inability to see ourselves for who we really are, in our messy humanness, an inability to establish and develop this. Plays out in our relationships, in our ability to trust each other and develop a foundation of mutual respect and trustworthiness. And this proliferate. That's the nature of it. We'll see the consequences of our difficulty telling the truth at a mass scale. Result in this inability to believe the information that we are seeing or hearing, the difficulty discerning what's real and what's not. And so in a collective way, this destroys our foundation of trust. It reduces mass suspicion and creates this collective kind of delusion. We cannot individually create some kind of global consensus reality. We work within the realms of our influence, which is first and foremost our own hearts and minds. The relationships that we're in. So this is about our own commitment to the truth. We're finding our own ability to engage in our relationships in our lives with sincerity. So this question is meant to help us do that, to feel that out through experience and practice. Am I telling the truth? The second question we can ask ourselves is this said with good intention? Behind our words, in the moment before words come out of our mouths, is there goodwill toward ourselves and others in this moment? Is there compassion for myself and this other person? It goes back to this development of right intention, which we've been talking about the last few weeks, that we've been learning with the classes. And this intention really matters because when goodwill and compassion are missing, harmful stuff comes out. I want to clarify that harm is not when we tell someone something difficult, hard to hear. Sometimes it can feel like harm if someone's feelings are hurt or if they're upset or disappointed. Harm is when speech is cruel, sarcastic, degrading, insulting. It is speech that is intended to harm. Harm can be done in ignorance as well, with good intention behind it, but lack of clarity. But this question helps us do what we can to prevent intentional harm, to check with ourselves. What is my intention? What's in my heart here before I say? The other aspect of right intention like goodwill and compassion is what's called renunciation, letting go. And so another way of looking at this is Is there something we're trying to get with our speech? Is what we're saying motivated by some attempt to gain something or to hold on to something? And this is important because this is usually where untrue speech comes from. Are we telling the truth, or are we trying to get approval, get someone to like us? Are we trying to appear more innocent than maybe we really are? Are we trying to present a more flattering version of ourselves than a real one? So is it said with good intention? Check our intention. The third question we can ask ourselves is this useful? In Buddhist texts, the phrase is idle chatter. Try to abstain from idle chatters. Talking for, I was talking sake, just to be saying something. There is a wholesome version of this, which is just small talk. It's a way that we connect with people that we don't know very well and we don't have with. And it does, I think, create social harmony. I really believe that. We talk about the weather, we talk about the eagles. You can feel that harmony happening, right? And you're sort of walking down the streets in Philadelphia, trying to go birds to them. So just a little bit of connection there, a little bit of resonance that happens. And we do a version of that in here at the time too. We do small talk and hang out and find simple things to connect over. Not just to fill the time, but to foster some kind of connection with the people that we sit with. But there's another kind of idle chatter that does not create social harmony and does not benefit the speaker or the listener. And I think we can see this on both an individual level and the collective level. I can think of plenty of examples in my own life where I've just been talking for the sake of talking, just to fill some silence that I've been uncomfortable with. And then I leave that interaction feeling really embarrassed and kind of regretful. Like, was that even true? Why did I say that? And on a social level, what happens when we're all to fill some kind of void? We get what we have now, which is this overwhelming, infinite ocean of content, just idle chatter, just useless, benefits no one, right? It's just, especially within the era of AI, just an ocean of idle chatter and untruths. The last question that we can ask ourselves is this the right time? When there is something true to say, and it's useful to say it, and there's good intention behind it, we might ask, is this the right time? Is this urgent? Is it best to say this now? Is there a more appropriate time to say it? You might notice practicing that the answer to these questions are almost never crystal clear. What is the right time? I think I have good intentions, but I think this is true. If we are under the illusion that there is a right answer, a correct way of communicating, that will leave us in perfect harmony all the time, blameless, out of us. We're going to be perfectly understood all the time. If we get it right, if we're good, we will be left frozen and frustrated, trying to find the right answers to everything. We'll wait and wait and wait until the perfect time to say something. We figure out the perfect way to say it, and in the meantime, all of this resentment is getting built up, and this bruise gets harder and harder to discern, and good intention gets harder and harder to reach. If we can approach this as an opportunity to hone our instruments, to learn something, to increase our sensitivity, by just doing the best we can, then we get to live. Say, well, I'm not sure if this is the right time or the right thing to say, but I'm going to try my best, and we'll see what happens. And often the wisdom of this teaching really helps me when things don't turn out the way that I hope they would. When I walk away from a really painful, confusing, frustrating interaction, I find myself asking myself the question, well, did I tell the truth? Have good intentions? Did I try to pick the right time? I think they were useful to say. If I can say yes to those questions, then I have a little bit more peace, a little more harmony with myself, regardless of the outcome. It's actually kind of serendipitous that I'm talking about this today, because I realized it was almost exactly a year ago that I was talking about ethics. We were in this room situated the opposite way for people who have been here with us. And that was just a few months after I had returned from a retreat in rural Maryland. And at that retreat, there was truly an abundance of spiders. Just so many spiders. All over the sidewalks, everywhere you walked, right? They were constantly getting into the meditation hall where everyone is sitting on the floor. An amazing amount of spiders. And because we were at retreat, we had all committed to these moral practices, one of which was abstaining from killing. I actually really enjoyed it because they had these like bug vacuums, with like battery powered tubes where you could take the cap off and suck the spider into the tube and then put the cap off and then push the reverse button and shoot the spider into the grass. It was actually really fun. But the important thing here is that I realized that that practice was really helping me increase my sensitivity to how I coexist with living creatures in the world. How do I react to these guys that I now have to share space with? So I want to invite you to see what happens if you take just even one of these questions and carry it with you for a day or a week. Am I telling the truth? Was that true? And just see what happens. See what happens if you are attending to that, trying to hone your instrument towards truth telling, towards the real, the authentic. And so that's my invitation, my offering. Let's sit for another couple of minutes and discern what is of use to you and what's not. Are you to abandon what's not useful